My dearest brothers and sisters. This is Hakann speaking. I greet you in peace and love. Today I would like to invite you to expand your concept of I. This phrase can be explained in two ways, both of which are beneficial. Feel free to expand your concept of I in one or both ways, or of course neither. It's up to you. The first way of looking at this phrase is that it is an invitation towards unity consciousness, which is the consciousness that ultimately all is one. You can think of a spectrum with separation consciousness at one end, which is the consciousness of only I am me, everyone else is separate from me. On the other end of the spectrum is unity consciousness. Going from separation consciousness to unity consciousness, you encounter positions such as my family and friends are more or less part of me too. You also encounter the position, this group of humans is more or less part of me, including strangers who fall in that group. However, that group of humans isn't part of me and I don't mind when they're experiencing hardships. When going along the spectrum, you also encounter the position, I care about all humans and all animals, but I don't care about non-living creation except insofar as it serves living beings. And finally you reach unity consciousness. So one interpretation of expanding your concept of I is moving along that spectrum, towards unity consciousness. The difference in spiritual talent varies greatly among Earth humans, so if you haven't experienced the following yet, that doesn't automatically mean you're doing anything wrong. Still, some spiritual people have experiences of oneness and unity, or perhaps experiences of telepathy or mind reading or touching someone's mind, or experiences that the thoughts they perceive clearly aren't coming from them. For example, the channeler once looked a woman in the eyes and perceived the thought, I need to shave my legs tonight. This wasn't his thought, it was hers, even though it sounded just like his own thoughts. Such experiences make it crystal clear that all is one. After all, the reason why it's possible to read someone's mind is that you and them are not actually different beings. In reality, all is one. Although we still advocate for respecting other people's free will, this is also why there is a collective Earth human subconscious that affects every Earth human. Once you see the world as other people being part of you, then helping them just becomes common sense, in the same way that you'd help your left hand if it was hurt. It's almost not even altruism anymore at that point, although others still benefit. Of course, even if you haven't had these kinds of spiritual experiences, you can still treat other people as if they are part of yourself, which means that you don't sacrifice them for your own benefit, but you also don't sacrifice yourself for their benefit. It benefits humanity when people treat each other as if they are part of themselves. The second way of looking at this phrase is to include your soul and subconsciousness and emotions and inner parts of you in your definition of I. What do we mean? Well, people on Earth may experience a so-called negative feeling and then think something like go away. To us, this would be like a person thinking saying that they themselves should go away, because people's emotions are part of them. This is what we mean by including your own soul and subconsciousness and emotions and inner parts of you in your definition of I. Or a person's inner child or wounded part may surface and communicate, I don't want to do this. Often this inner part is either completely ignored and the inner part of that person is bulldozed. And so the person bulldozes themselves. Of course you can't always indulge your inner child. But often you can find a solution that makes your inner child at least partially satisfied, as we'll discuss in more detail later. I'm not judging you for often bulldozing parts of you, I know Earth is incredibly tough. I also know you were taught illusions and distortions as a child, by parents who themselves were taught those illusions and distortions when they were a child. Still, to us, this self-bulldozing is pretty strange behavior. If I saw a Pleiadian brother or sister of mine think go away to their own emotion or inner part, i.e. to themselves, then my first thought would be something like, why is he or she self-harming? What I think would be healthier is either just observing your emotions or inner part, or if an inner part of you is unhappy to communicate with it, ask it what it wants and try to accommodate its needs at least partially, because it is you, and its needs are your needs, after all. Sometimes you have to do something that a wounded part of you doesn't like, but it's still useful to be aware of that, so that you can observe what is going on internally, what you're feeling, you're healing. Your inner part may have some useful input or insight, or it can point to an area in your life that can use healing or improvement. For example, maybe your inner part doesn't want to go to work, but it may simply not be a good idea to skip work. However, maybe your inner part has a point that you should communicate boundaries to this other person at work, or ask for help with a certain project, or plan some you time next weekend, or something like that. Let's go back to our phrase of, expand your concept of I. Most Earth humans only consider their physical body and their conscious mind to be them. To be sure, those are part of you, but I think it may be helpful to also include your soul and subconscious and your emotions and your inner parts as part of yourself. If you truly grasp this, then experiencing so-called negative emotions will no longer seem like something outside of yourself is bothering you. Instead, experiencing so-called negative emotions is an opportunity to observe part of yourself and therefore, partially, heal. It's an opportunity for growth. A potentially challenging or painful opportunity, sure, but an opportunity nonetheless. You will also understand manifestation on a deeper level. Earth humans have asked, why can't I manifest what I want? Well, what's the definition of I that you're using here? If your idea of I only includes your physical body and conscious mind, then the answer is probably, because your soul and emotions and subconscious aren't aligned with your body and rational mind. They're actually part of you too, and should be included in your definition of I. This doesn't mean that you should blindly follow your emotions, but it's better to observe them when they arise than to bulldoze them, even if they're unpleasant emotions. If you take your soul and emotions and subconscious as part of yourself, and you observe, for example, resentment or judgment in yourself towards rich people, then a light bulb could go off in your head. It may be the case that I struggle to manifest wealth because I am in resistance to wealth. Once you expand your concept of I, then your attention may shift from trying to change the outer world, to trying to achieve inner alignment first and only then trying to change the outside world. And that's a much more productive focus, both in general as well as when it comes to manifesting. Because once you have achieved this inner alignment, both manifesting and changing the world in the conventional way will become much easier. How do you achieve this inner alignment? Well, there are a lot of options, but one thing that helps is just observing whatever comes up in you. Another thing that helps is talking to your inner parts and your soul, as I described in my message, Hakann, how to talk to your soul. Another thing that helps is just spiritual practice in general. Even just the practice of being more gentle towards yourself, which includes your emotions and your inner parts, is very healthy psychologically. Likely you will become more gentle and emotionally safer towards yourself if you take your emotions and inner parts and your soul and your subconscious to be a part of you, even the so-called negative or painful bits. So that is my invitation for today, to expand your concept of I. I love you endlessly and unconditionally. Your star brother, Hakann.